Tashidilek and good morning to all. For those who have arrived yesterday, I hope you have a restful sleep. And for those who have reached this morning, I hope your journey wasn't that tiring. And on that note, I would formally like to welcome you all and open this 5th Young Indian Research Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies, organized by the Tibet Policy Institute. On behalf of the Tibet Policy Institute, I would like to extend our gratitude to the host nation, the College for Higher Tibetan Studies, and especially to the principal, Gepa Samla, principal of the College for Higher Tibetan Studies. I now would like to say a few words of introduction to our conference itself. This is the 5th iteration of the Young Indian Research Scholars Conference, and the conference aims to bring together a diverse group of India-based scholars whose work circulate around Tibet, Tibetans, and Himalayan studies. Without further ado, I would now like to request our Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Kama Chuingla, the Secretary of the Department of Information and International Relations of the Central Tibetan Administration, to inaugurate the conference by lighting the ceremonial lamp. Thank you, Mr. Kamaching La. And now, I would like to request again to you, Mr. Kamaching La, to deliver the keynote address.
Namaste, good morning to all. So basically I'm the Secretary of Department of Information and International Relations. So I'm of a Babu background. So I don't have much of knowledge of research and all this kind of thing, but still I'm being invited here to for the inaugural session, and so I'm going to speak a few words in the opening session. It is my great pleasure for me to be invited to the 5th Young Indian Research Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies, and would like to applaud Tibet Policy Institute for organizing this 2-day conference. It is important for the Indian research scholars to engage in Tibetan studies, not because you have a sizable Tibetan community living in India as refugees. Rather, it is because of the age-old cultural ties between Tibet and India dating back to hundreds of years. In fact, the Nalanda tradition, which is the foundation of Tibetan Buddhism, is kept alive in its pristine form in Tibet, whereas it is more or less a thing of the ancient past for the Indians now. So there is much for the Indian research scholars to study and learn from the Tibetans of something which is originally and intrinsically Indian treasure. You must have heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama say time and again during his public discourses that we Tibetans are chelas and Indian brothers and sisters are gurus, and that we are a reliable chela. His Holiness is referencing this in context of the Nalanda tradition, which we Tibetans have kept alive in its original form to this day. The Buddha's original teachings and commentaries by great Indian masters of renowned ancient Indian Buddhist universities such as Nalanda, Takshashila, and Vikramashila are kept in their pristine form in Tibetan translations in Buddhist canons such as Kangyur and Tengyur, and the Tibetan way of life and culture is inextricably connected to the teachings of Buddha and Nalanda masters. When I talk about Tibetan Buddhism, the Tibetan way of life, Tibetan culture, and the Buddhist people in Himalayas are ethnically and culturally no different from Tibetan people. However, this similarity is not to be taken in conjunction with the present political context. Politically, it is all the more important for the Indian research scholars in the present geopolitical context to study Tibet and the Himalayan belt. Since Tibet is under Chinese occupation and China is posing imminent threat to the India's strategic interest, engaging Himalayan and Tibetan studies in geopolitical context is a priority for India to safeguard its national interests in the long run. Therefore, I believe that we need more Indian researchers or experts on China, Tibet, and Himalayan region. This is because you must know your friends and adversaries well to engage them effectively. While not undervaluing the importance of Tibetan and Himalayan studies in its cultural perspective, I would urge all of you to encourage your peers to delve in both culture and geopolitics of the region as field of serious research. In addition to that, I must mention that the health and stability of Tibet's environment has direct ramifications to India and other regions in South and Southeast Asia. The rivers originating from Tibet are lifeline to millions of people in these regions. China's opaque policy on protection of Tibet's environment and absence of hydrological data of the rivers originating from Tibet are a serious cause of concern for the downstream nations. It might not be long before China weaponizes these rivers to bully the downstream nations. Since the stability of Tibet's environment is also in the interest of India's well-being, and it therefore warrants serious research and frame policy recommendations for the government to meet the challenge. I understand that there are over 20 Indian scholars and research professionals attending this conference. On behalf of the Department of Information and International Relations of the Central Tibetan Administration, I would like to welcome you to Dharamsala, and I wish you all a productive conference. And more significantly, to remain engaged with the Tibet Policy Institute in future to explore new frontiers of research in Tibetan studies. Thank you very much. So this is my statement. So just as I just mentioned, just suggested to Dr. Desela that next time when we'll continue this Young Indian Research Scholars Conference, this is the fifth that is taking place now. So in the future, we can have this kind of conference in collaboration with other universities or colleges in India, in different parts of India. So we can move out of Dharamsala, to explore further. So I just suggested to Dr. Desela, he has to look into the logistics and budget and everything. I think they will seriously discuss on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kamachingla, for your kind words and highlighting the geopolitical and environmental importance of Tibet and Himalaya. Those are some of the topics that a few of our participants will cover in their presentation. For next, I now invite Dr. Tenzin Desel, who is a senior fellow at the Tibet Policy Institute, to deliver the welcome address.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Tenzin Desel, and I'm a senior research fellow at the Tibet Policy Institute. Before I welcome you to Dharamshala and to Sara College of Higher Tibetan Studies, I thought it would be quite useful to reflect on a Tibetan phrase called Tu Lokwa. Perhaps the English translation would be the collapse of time. So what does it mean, the collapse of time? It's often referred in contemporary Tibetan history as the moment in 1959 when Tibetans staged this popular uprising against the Chinese colonial rule, and His Holiness escaped to India. So this is often referred to in literature about how the time has collapsed for the Tibetan people. But I wonder if there's perhaps a conference such as this, perhaps we can find another meaning of the collapse of time. So what does time mean? So history often is a discipline of looking into time and space. So if you look at time historically, there are various scales through which we can look at history. So there's the geological history, where we think in terms of billions of years. And then we have the history of industrialized world that started in the 18th century. But I really wonder if there's another collapse of time in the sense that the two time are merging together and collapsing together. In a sense, what I'm trying to say here is the age that we're living in, which is often referred to as Anthropocene, I think it is throwing up numerous challenges. So the tectonic plate, the shift in tectonic plate that has sort of leavened the space that we are studying, the Himalayas and the Tibetan Plateau, I think there is another collapse there also. I think so the collapse of these many streams of time, the geological time, the modernity, and the industrialization of the world, I think it throws up numerous challenges for us to think through some of the challenges that we are facing. So particularly if you look at some of the climate changes that is taking place in Tibet. And of course, we are witnessing the same thing in the Himalayas. So we have witnessed this one a month ago in Himachal Pradesh. You must have seen it, floods and flash floods and busting of dams and all sort of things. And then recently, a couple of days ago, we have witnessed the same thing in Sikkim. So what does that mean? So what kind of collapse of time, and how do we deal with this challenge of this collapse of time? What kind of development we need to undertake? So these are the questions that has to come from researchers from the field of Himalayan and Tibetan studies. And I think we all are very well placed to explore those challenges, offer policy prescription, and even if we are not able to provide policy prescription, at least what we can do is we can show the mirror to society and the stakeholders the challenges that we are facing. So with that short reflection, I would like to welcome every one of you to Dharamsala, and I really hope to learn from every one of you, and I really would like to sit through all of your conferences and listen to what you have to say and learn from you. So with this, I would like to welcome to you Dharamsala again, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Disela, for sharing a short reflection on the theme of the conference. We have now come to the end of the inaugural session, but before we take a short tea break, I would request everyone to assemble right outside for a quick photo session, and after which we have a 10 minutes short tea break, after which we will assemble again back to the conference hall at 10:40 a.m. sharp. There'll be a little mix-up in the conference schedule, but we have moved from 10:30 to 10:40. We'll be assembling back at the conference hall at 10:40 a.m. Thank you so much. So let's all take a group photo together. Thank you.